You're ungrateful. Get out and don't come back. That was the last thing my mother screamed at me. I was 27 years old. My name is Elaine Foster, and that sentence ended decades of silent sacrifice and pretending. She said it during a family meeting. My father Frank just sat there. My younger brother Kyle, 26, jobless, slouched on the couch, arms crossed, didn't say a word. No one stood up for me. No one even flinched. So I got up, picked up my bag, and left. No drama, no tears, no begging, just one last look, and then I walked away. Let me ask you something. Have you ever given everything to people who only noticed when you stopped? Have you ever kept the lights on in someone else's home while yours was going dark? If you've ever been the strong one, the fixer, the responsible one, I hope you'll stay with me because this isn't just my story. It might be yours too. If anything I've said so far feels familiar, just type "I've been there" in the comments. You're not alone and you're not crazy. I was always the quiet one. Not shy, just careful. Careful not to need too much. Careful not to cause trouble. Careful to be useful. From the time I was 16, I worked weekends at a local diner. While Kyle was still figuring things out. He dropped out of community college, came home, and mostly stayed there. Mom said he was sensitive. Not everyone's like you, Elaine. She said it like being reliable was a flaw. I got good grades, earned scholarships, skipped parties, skipped vacations, graduated early, landed a finance job before I turned 23. I thought that would finally make them proud. It didn't. They didn't ask how I was doing. But when the bills came, they remembered me. And I gave. Of course I did. Because when you're the responsible one, you don't stop to ask if it's fair. You just keep giving until something breaks. Has that ever happened to you? Leave if you've ever carried too much in silence, you'd be surprised how many of us have. At first, it felt okay. Helping with groceries, covering the electric bill, just for a little while until things got better. But a little while turned into months, then years. I paid part of the mortgage when Dad's hours got cut. I never hesitated, never asked for it back, because that's what family does, right? But it was never mutual. When Kyle did anything at all, they celebrated. Got out of bed before noon, he was trying. Meanwhile, I was working weekends and skipping meals. Still, they didn't thank me. They didn't even ask how I was managing. Eventually, they stopped mentioning the bills altogether, as if they paid themselves. But the truth, I was paying in silence. With every check, I gave up a piece of myself, and no one noticed. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family, like your efforts only mattered when they needed more? If you have, you're not the only one. And no, you're not wrong for wanting more than that. It happened on a Sunday, one of those family check-ins Mom insisted on. Kyle was complaining again. Something about being between phases. Mom nodded serious. It's been hard on him. Then she turned to me, her voice low, sharp. At least someone in this house isn't completely selfish. I blinked. Wait, what? She kept going. You've been distant, Elaine. Cold. Honestly, disappointing. It hit like a slap I didn't see coming. I sat there frozen. They didn't see the overtime I pulled, the dinners I skipped, the car I still hadn't replaced. They didn't see what I gave, only what I didn't. And that's when I knew. They weren't looking for a daughter. They were looking for a provider. One that didn't ask questions. One that didn't say no. Ever felt that shift, where love turns into expectation, where silence becomes survival? Let me know with if you've ever felt it too. Weeks later, the family meeting was called. Dad sent a group text the night before. Let's all sit down, get on the same page. I should have known. It wasn't a conversation. It was a setup. Kyle was already on the couch, arms crossed, waiting. Mom stood by the kitchen counter, holding a folder. Her lips were tight, eyes narrowed. I didn't even take off my coat before it started. We need to talk about the mortgage, she said. Your contribution, Dad added. I stared. My contribution, Mom didn't blink. We need you to cover all of it. Full amount, every month. I couldn't believe it. I had been paying half, quietly, consistently for over a year. But now they wanted it all. And when I pushed back when I asked about Kyle, Mom slammed the folder shut. Don't you dare throw that in his face. That's when she said it. Loud, final, cruel, you're ungrateful, get out. And I did. Have you ever reached a point where silence hurt more than leaving type enough, if you know what that moment feels like? I didn't slam the door, I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just left, one step at a time across a line I hadn't realized I'd been standing on for years. A line between who they saw me as and who I really was. Outside, the air felt strange, sharp, clean. It wasn't joy, it wasn't sadness either. It was something else. Clarity. That quiet knowing in your chest when you finally stop begging to be seen. I stayed with a friend that first week, then found a tiny apartment on the edge of town. One bedroom, worn floor, broken blinds. But it was mine. No sticky notes asking for payments, no guilt behind every sigh, no Kyle. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think. And what I heard was this: you did the right thing. If you've ever walked away quietly, but knew it was the loudest thing you'd ever done, just comment, I chose me. The first few days were quiet, unnervingly quiet. No buzzing phone, no messages, no guilt-laced voicemails, not from mom, not from dad, not even a passive-aggressive emoji from Kyle. I kept checking anyway, habit maybe, or hope, but nothing came. I thought I was supposed to feel ashamed, punished, like I'd done something wrong. Instead, I slept through the night for the first time in months. I ate full meals. I even laughed out loud with coworkers over lunch. My therapist called it creating boundaries. I called it finally breathing. I paid off a credit card, took myself to dinner, started planning a trip I'd put off for years. It didn't feel like freedom yet, but it didn't feel like drowning either. And sometimes that's enough to begin again. If you've ever found peace in the quiet, drop A in the comments. Peace doesn't always feel loud. Exactly. 21 days after I left, I got a text from Dad. Hey, did you send this month's mortgage yet? No. How are you? No, we miss you. Just business, as usual. I stared at the screen, then smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly them. They didn't care that I was gone. They cared that my money was. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I poured coffee, stood by the window, and watched the city below. People rushing, living, breathing lives of their own. For once, I wasn't rushing to rescue anyone. I sipped slowly. Then 10 minutes later, I finally replied, Oh, I thought I wasn't welcome anymore. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then came back again. And just like that, the silence shattered. If you've ever been needed only when you're useful, comment. Now I see. My phone lit up like it was on fire. Calls, messages, panic. This isn't the time to be petty. We need your help, Elaine. The bank called. They're threatening foreclosure. And then from Kyle, wow, way to destroy the family just to prove a point. There it was. Not concern, not regret, just desperation disguised as blame. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were drowning and the lifeboat had left with me. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because deep down I knew this wasn't new. This panic had been building long before I left. They were just better at hiding it when I was still funding the illusion. Have you ever been blamed for finally stepping back after years of holding everything up? Type wine, step back, if that moment ever found you too. Then came the voice messages. First from Mom, long, shaky, breathless. In one she cried, in another she shouted. In all of them, I was the villain. But the script kept changing. First, I was heartless, then immature, then just confused. She said she understood, that she knew I was hurting. Push, then pull, shame, then sugar. It was emotional whiplash, a cycle I knew too well. Because every time I said no, they pushed harder until I said yes. Every time I said a line, they painted it as betrayal. But not this time. This time I didn't flinch. If you've ever been spun in circles like that until you forgot which way was yours, comment, not again. Because recognizing the pattern is how you finally break it. I opened my banking app, scrolled through months of transfers, line after line, each labeled mortgage, utilities, family. Thousands of dollars. No questions asked, no conditions. And now they were demanding more as if nothing had changed, as if they hadn't kicked me out, as if ungrateful hadn't been shouted across a room while Kyle played silent witness. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, not out of guilt but clarity. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could give, and when I stopped being convenient, I became disposable. It wasn't new, but it was finally visible. Ever had to look at proof of just how far you went for people who never said thank you? Comment. I kept the receipts. If you've been there too, you're not wrong for remembering. More texts came. Kyle again. You seriously gonna ignore us? Grow up. There it was, the guilt grenade, thrown right on cue. He always knew how to time a jab, just sharp enough to make me doubt myself, make me wonder, am I the selfish one? Am I letting them fall? But then I caught my breath, steadied my hands, and typed 4 words. Not my problem anymore. Send. 5 seconds later, my phone rang. Mom, then Dad, then a group call. I turned off the ringer, let the silence ring louder, because I wasn't ignoring them. I was protecting me. If you've ever learned that guilt is just another leash comment, I cut the cord. You don't owe anyone your peace. I couldn't sleep that night, not because of guilt, but because something didn't add up. The timelines, the urgency, the sudden panic only when I stopped paying. Where had the money gone? By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called the bank. 3 transfers, 15 minutes on hold. Finally, someone answered. I explained carefully that I had been helping with the mortgage and just needed to know where things stood. She paused. Well, I can't share much since the account isn't in your name, but I can say this, they've been behind for several months. I held my breath. How many months exactly? Looks like they've only made partial payments for the last 8. Even when I was still sending money. I sat there frozen. 8 months. All that time, I thought I was saving their home. Turns out I was just slowing its collapse. They smiled to my face, sent friendly texts, called me our rock, all while letting the foundation rot. And the money, I started connecting dots. The spa receipts I once saw on Mom's laptop, the new patio furniture Kyle posted online, the sudden tone shifts when I asked about bills. We're fine now, don't worry. They weren't worried, because I was still paying. But now I wasn't. Have you ever realized someone used your love like a cover-up, a mask to hide their own mess? If that hit home, just comment, I see it now. Sometimes clarity hurts, but it also sets you free. I opened my banking app again. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but something colder. I added up the transfers, every line, every month, every dollar I sent without question. 5 figures, clean, quiet, undocumented, except by me. And they let it bleed, into foreclosure, into silence. What did they use it for? Spa days, Kyle's new stereo, Dad's craft beer obsession. I remembered Mom's words. We're doing fine now. And I believed her. I really did. But now the numbers told a different story. They always do. And for the first time, I felt something stronger than heartbreak. I felt done. If you've ever hit that point past the yelling, past the crying comment, I'm done. Because sometimes peace looks a lot like letting go. Another buzz. Kyle again. Please just call Mom. She's a mess. I almost laughed. Wasn't I a mess for years when I was skipping meals to keep their lights on? I typed back. Funny, you all seemed just fine when the money was flowing. Where did it go, Kyle? 3 dots. Then nothing. That silence told me everything. They never expected me to ask. They never thought I'd stop, but I had, and now I was just getting started. If you've ever surprised someone by finally choosing yourself, drop a below. Because sometimes growth looks like asking the question they hoped you never would. By noon, my phone turned into a battlefield. Missed calls from Mom, voicemails from Dad. Kyle switched between guilt and sarcasm like it was a sport. But I didn't answer. Not yet. Until Mom called 5 times in a row. On the 6th ring, I picked up. Her voice hit me like a wave. Elaine, what is wrong with you? You can't just abandon your family like this. I let her go. Let her scream. Let her twist it all into her favorite performance, martyrdom. Then I waited for the silence, the breath, The pause she always gave before turning guilt into plea. And finally I asked, not loud, not angry, just steady, "Where did the money go, Mom?" Silence, real silence, the kind that feels heavy even over the phone, then a stammer. "What? What are you talking about?" I didn't blink. "The mortgage, the money I've been sending, the payments the bank says haven't been made for almost a year." "Where did it go?" She exhaled, flustered, defensive. "Well, groceries. Life isn't cheap, Elaine." I said nothing. Then she added quickly, "Your father's dental work. Kyle's car. It was an emergency." Kyle's car, the one with custom rims and a brand new stereo system. Right. That emergency. I closed my eyes, breathed in through my nose because I wasn't looking for an apology anymore. I was looking for confirmation. And now I had it. If you've ever asked a simple question and watched someone scramble to like comment, that's all I needed. Truth doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just cracks. So instead of paying the mortgage, I said slowly, "You prioritize spa days, takeout, and Kyle's sound system?" She exploded. "Don't you dare make it sound like we were being reckless. We've sacrificed so much for you." That line again, the one they'd used since I was 16, working double shifts while Kyle played video games. "You didn't sacrifice," I replied. "You expected me to say yes, to give, to carry, to stay quiet." Then Dad's voice cut in, measured, controlled. "Elaine, please, we just need help this month, just enough to stop the bank from taking the house. We swear we'll fix things after that." I almost laughed. Fix things, like they fixed them before while I paid and they smiled. "No, not again. That's not fair," Dad said. I cut in. "No, what's not fair is being thrown out of a house I helped pay for, being called ungrateful after years of quiet sacrifice." I stood up, pacing, letting the truth find its voice. "If I hadn't asked about the mortgage, how long were you going to keep pretending everything was fine? Another year until the house was gone and you blamed me for not saving it." They didn't answer, just breathing, just shame thinly veiled in silence. Then Mom whispered, "We didn't mean to lie. We were scared. We thought if we told you, you'd stop helping." I exhaled, flat, quiet. "So you lied to keep the money coming." No one denied it. Because how could they, if you've ever seen the truth laid bare? Comment, "No more lies." Because the moment they admit it, you stop needing their apology. "There's always another way," I said. "But you didn't want that. You wanted the easy way. You wanted me." Then I said the words they feared the most, the ones that ended the performance for good. "Sell the house." Mom gasped. "No. Elaine, please, this is our family home." I didn't raise my voice, didn't change my tone, just looked at the phone and replied, "And you threw me out of it." Dead silence. No excuses left, no more guilt to throw. And I hung up. No goodbyes, no promise to think it over, no soft pause that left room for guilt to sneak back in. Just a click and peace. If you've ever had to choose between your dignity and someone else's comfort comment, I chose peace, because walking away can be the bravest sentence you'll ever speak. The next 48 hours were quiet, too quiet. No calls, no texts, no guilt-drenched voicemails. It was almost eerie, but I knew better. That wasn't surrender. It was the silence of a storm gathering force. And on day 3, it hit. A text from Kyle. "Thanks a lot, Elaine. They're talking about moving in with me now. Hope you're happy." I rolled my eyes. Happy, no, but resolved, yes. I typed back, "They kicked me out," not the other way around. 10 seconds later, his reply came sharp. "Maybe if you weren't so cold all the time." They wouldn't have to. Classic. Hurt someone by drawing a boundary, then blame them for the fallout. If that sounds familiar, comment, that's not on me, because it never was. Later that night, an email came from Dad, a full essay. Classic, frank, measured tone, carefully chosen words sounding like an olive branch, but lined with guilt. He said he was disappointed in how things escalated, that he hoped I'd Remember where I came from. Then came the twist. He forgave me for walking away, as if forgiveness was his to give. What he didn't say, sorry we lied. Thank you. We were wrong. Attached was a spreadsheet, their expenses from the last 3 months. At the top, bolded, overdue mortgage total. Like numbers would move me more than the betrayal ever did. If someone's ever tried to rewrite a story you lived through, comment, I have the truth. Because the real version doesn't come with spreadsheets, it lives in your memory. I didn't respond to his email, not with words, but I opened a blank spreadsheet of my own, titled it Documented Transfers. Line by line, I entered every dollar I'd ever sent them. Mortgage, groceries, utilities, labeled, dated, tracked, matched each one with receipts. Highlighted the months they lied, cross-referenced their requests with my payments. Just in case, because I knew they weren't done yet. They might twist it further, say I imagined it, say I abandoned them, say I was bitter. But now, I had more than memory. I had proof, literal and emotional. If you've ever had to keep receipts to protect your truth, drop in the comments, because people rewrite history, but numbers don't lie, and neither do boundaries. The next morning, another message came from Mom. Short, no greeting, no drama, just 6 words. We're selling the house. That's final. And strangely, that one hit harder than all the yelling in the world, because it meant they finally understood. I wasn't coming back, not as their lifeline, not as a daughter to be guilted, not as the one they thought would always say yes. They would sell the house, and I had already bought my freedom the day they slammed the door in my face. No tears came, no hesitation, just breath deep, steady mine. If you've ever had to give up a place to reclaim your peace, comment, let it go, because some homes are just houses filled with noise. The day they moved out, I thought I might feel something. A hollow ache, a flicker of nostalgia, a sting of guilt, but I didn't. No grief, no longing, just space. Space where pain used to live. Space I had cleared piece by painful piece. A distant cousin mentioned they'd moved into a rental near Kyle's apartment. They didn't tell me, I didn't ask, and strangely, that silence felt right, like a photograph fading after years of pretending it still looked like the original. I didn't miss the walls that echoed with conditions. I didn't miss being useful instead of loved. If you've ever left a place and realized it left you long ago, comment, it's just a building. Because family isn't built with bricks. It's built with respect. People love to say family is everything. But no one ever explains what happens when everything only flows one way. I used to think family meant blood, shared history, shared sacrifice. But now family is the friend who let me crash on her couch that first night. It's the coworker who brought me soup when I looked too tired to ask. It's the barista who remembered my name before my usual. It's anyone who respects your boundaries without making you feel guilty for having them. It's not obligation. It's choice. Mutual, steady, real. And most of all, family is me. If you've ever built your own version of family, drop a below. Because sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones who raised you. For the first time in my life, I chose me. I paid my own rent, ate meals I wanted, decorated a space no one criticized, no sticky notes, no sighs, no hidden debt in every corner. I said no, and no one raised their voice. I stayed in on weekends, and no one called me selfish. Love didn't come with invoices, and silence didn't feel like punishment. Still, some nights I wondered, was I too harsh? Was there another way? But then I remembered the silence right after they kicked me out. Not a word, not a hand, not a single voice saying, wait, don't go, and I knew. I didn't break the family. I just stopped letting them break me. If you've ever made peace with choosing yourself, comment finally me, because you were always worth the choice. I'm sitting in my apartment now. It's not big. The floors creak, the blinds don't match, but it holds something I never had before. Safety, stillness, a kind of quiet that doesn't accuse me of being distant. There are no sticky notes asking for money, no sudden calls demanding more, no passive comments about how I've changed. Here I change freely, and no one's keeping score. I water my own plants, pay my bills, Light a candle after dinner just because it makes me feel human. No one has to approve, and no one gets to erase what I've built to survive. If you've ever created a space that made you feel like you'll comment, this is home. Because peace doesn't come from square footage, it comes from freedom. Still, sometimes it creeps in, that whisper, that wondering. Did I go too far? Was there another way to fix this? I replay the last moments their faces when I stood up. The way they didn't stop me, didn't even flinch. And I remember all the months they lied. All the years I gave without hearing thank you. I remember how selfish only came up when I said no. And suddenly the doubt fades. The noise dies down, and what remains is quiet certainty. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped being the only one holding us together. If you've ever questioned yourself after doing the right thing, comment I had to. Because healing often begins right after the second guessing ends. I used to think being strong meant staying quiet. It meant showing up even when I was falling apart. It meant giving even when I had nothing left. Because that's what the responsible one does. Right? While Kyle got to be lost, messy, emotional, forgiven, I had to be steady, predictable. I learned early that my needs weren't convenient, so I buried them. I smiled through exhaustion, laughed when I wanted to cry, nodded when I should have screamed. But strength without rest isn't strength. It's slow, quiet burnout, disguised as maturity. If you've ever been praised for holding it all together while falling apart in silence, comment, I carried it too, because carrying it alone should never have been the expectation. People may say, I broke the family, but families built on silence crack themselves. Families that expect one person to carry all the weight aren't whole, they're imbalanced. I didn't break anything. I refused to keep breaking myself. I set a boundary. I enforced it. And they didn't like that. Because boundaries feel like betrayal to those who benefited from your lack of them. But this isn't bitterness. This is closure, measured, honest, calm. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped patching the holes they kept making. If they rebuild it truthfully, respectfully, maybe I'll meet them halfway. But I'm not holding my breath. If you've ever been blamed for choosing your own peace, comment, I walked away. And remember, peace isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of self. For years, I apologized for everything. For saying no, for being tired, for not showing up fast enough, for needing space. I called it being polite, being a good daughter. But really, it was fear. Fear of disappointing them. Fear of being labeled cold. Fear of losing love that only came when I was useful. But not anymore. I survived. I saved. I built something on my own, and I'm done apologizing for needing air after years of suffocating. They wanted me small, predictable, quiet. Now they say I've changed. They're right. I have. If you've stopped apologizing for putting yourself first, comment, I'm not sorry, because healing isn't selfish. It's survival. Sometimes I write letters I'll never send. Not for them, but for me. I write down the things I wish I'd said, the moments I wish they'd seen, the nights I cried after wiring money I couldn't afford, the birthdays I missed because I was working overtime to cover someone else's bills. I write about how it felt to be called cold just for setting a line they didn't like. I don't send these letters. I burn some. I tear up others. But I keep a few. Not as reminders of pain, but proof of growth. If you've ever written just to hear yourself speak after years of being silenced, comment, I wrote too. Because your voice matters, even if no one's listening but you. I know they're telling people their version of the story, that I turned my back, that I let them fall, that I changed, got cold, selfish, distant. Maybe they say I'm ungrateful. Maybe they say I forgot who raised me, but they never mentioned the years I held us together. The bills I paid, the calls I answered no matter the hour. They won't talk about how they lied just to keep the money flowing. That part doesn't fit their story. And honestly, I've stopped trying to correct it. Because their story is survival. Mine is truth. If you've ever had to let people misunderstand you just to finally breathe, comment, let them talk. Because the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs peace. They expected me to come back. They always did. To give in. To soften, to say, okay, just this once. But silence is powerful when it's chosen, when it's earned. I used to think saying nothing meant defeat. Now I know better. It means I'm not explaining what should have been obvious. It means I'm not begging to be seen by people who close their eyes on purpose. It means I've said enough. They feel the silence. I know they do, because it's not just absence, it's consequence. If you've ever realized that not responding was the loudest thing you could do, comment. My silence spoke, because not every fight deserves your voice. Some just need your exit. I used to carry their guilt like it was mine. When they struggled, I rushed in. When they fell short, I stretched myself thin. But now I see helping isn't love when it's demanded, when it's expected, when it's never returned. They didn't ask for support, they assumed it. And when I stopped giving, they didn't ask if I was okay. They asked why I changed, but I didn't change. I just got tired. Tired of fixing what they refused to face. Now the weight is back where it belongs. And I no longer feel cruel for setting it down. If you've ever been made to feel guilty for simply protecting your own energy, comment, not mine to hold. Because not every burden was meant to be yours. These days, my life is quiet, not empty, not lonely, just still. I wake up and make coffee without rushing to check my phone. I walk without dread in my chest. I sit without flinching at the sound of a message. It's strange how silence used to scare me. Now it holds me. No one asking for money, no one twisting my words, no more eggshells under my feet. I read more, sleep better, breathe deeper, and I don't feel like I owe anyone an explanation for this peace. If you've ever found a quiet you didn't know you were missing, comment, I'm here now. Because healing isn't a fireworks show, it's the moment you realize you're no longer waiting to be hurt. Segment 39, the version I choose. Coachon katke coaching kumin. Không vì cha đua mà vì tự chữa lành. I know what story they'll tell. That I walked away. That I gave up on family. But here's the version I choose. I gave until it hurt. Until I had nothing left. Until my silence became a language no one bothered to learn. I asked for respect, not praise. For honesty, not perfection. And when I couldn't get either, I stepped away quietly, fully, finally. That wasn't abandonment. It was self-rescue. It wasn't cold. It was necessary. Not every story ends with a reunion. Some end with release. And that's not a tragedy. That's growth. If you've ever had to write a different ending than the one expected of you, comment my story, my terms. Because the version that matters most is the one you tell yourself when no one else is watching. I'm not waiting for closure anymore, not waiting for an apology that won't come, not refreshing my inbox or checking missed calls with that sting of hope. I've learned that freedom isn't a grand moment. It's the slow, steady return to yourself. It's the meal you eat in silence. The walk you take alone without explaining where you're going. The breath you draw without guilt sitting on your chest. They may never understand why I left. They may never see what it cost me to stay. But I do, and that's enough. So here I am, not angry, not bitter, just free. If this story reached any part of you, comment I'm free too, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop chasing love and start standing in your own. If any part of this story felt like your own, even just a line, a feeling, a moment, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters here. And if you'd like more stories like this, quiet, honest healing, don't forget to subscribe. There's more coming, and you're not alone anymore.